Morning, everybody. Did you greet everyone? Close. Well, you remember back, what was the date of the earthquake anyway? I can't remember. Do you know the date?
2010. I don't know the exact date, but it was in 2010.
2010. Anyone else remember the date of the earthquake in Haiti? I'm sorry, I probably should have written that down before I got up here. But you know how devastating that earthquake was to a country that in many ways has been devastated before any earthquake ever arrived there. And as a matter of fact, it used to be the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Still is. And so we kind of, and I can't say I can speak for you, we kind of committed ourselves that we wanted to do something for Haiti, but we wanted to do something for Haiti that was going to be not just throwing money at it, as what happened right after any kind of natural disaster has occurred like that. So I've been communicating with Dave and communicating with ABWE right from that time, saying we wanted to do something significant and something important, but we just didn't want to throw money at the issue. And what I appreciate about ABWE is they didn't want to do that either, because it's easy to do. And from what I understand, I mean, a lot of great work is done in Haiti. I'm not trying to criticize that, but like after any disaster like that, it's a logistical nightmare. And so to try to get something done that is going to meet needs that we have and meet the goals of also letting people know that we're doing these things not only because we love the people, but because we love God and God loves them. It puts it all together, and I appreciate that's the way that I feel about ABWE when they do something. So Dave Menor is here, and Dave, it's yours, and we want to hear from you, and give him a warm welcome, would you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it'd be better if I'm down here because we're going to put some slides on the screen, and you might get glare or something here, you know. Okay, that's fine. Okay. If we could put those first slide on, I think we'll get rolling here. First of all, I just want to say what a privilege it is for me to be here. And I like country living. I'm a suburbanite myself. My wife is a country girl from central Illinois. And we had the privilege of living in the country for six months is all when I renovated our home. But that was it. But so it was nice to take a country drive and be here. And it's good to be with you who know and love the Lord. And for who are interested in missions and meeting some of the needs, not only here in this community, but also around the world. And yes, as Bill said, I'm Dave Menor from ABWE, and you do support to hear my director, Bill Hansen. Bill is a fantastic guy. I love working with him. I've been around the horn with missions, and there are a few guys that I would rather work with than Bill, I'll tell you that. Just a tremendous leader. Another slide here. This is my wife, Linda. That is not my grandchild, although I do have 3 and 1 on the way. This is a little girl from Mexico. We were working down there. Linda is an RN. She'd love to be here with us this morning, but she can't. Any of you who are involved in medical, you know how that goes. You just can't always just go when you need to. Next slide. This is essentially where I am at, living much like the Good Samaritan ministry. But the gospel has to be the heart of all compassion ministries. If we don't share the gospel, we're no different than the Red Cross or the United Nations or the Peace Corps or any other organization. So whatever we do to help people with their physical needs, the gospel needs to be there. If not, we're just meeting a temporal need. And the greatest need is for them to come to know the Lord Jesus Christ as their Savior. And then in Galatians, it says that we are to help all, but especially to those who are of the household of faith. So when we as ABWE started looking at Haiti, what could we do for Haiti? The needs are horrendous. In fact, people ask me, are they making progress? When are they going to be able to recover from that? And my answer to that is they will never recover from it. They'll just get over it. Port-au-Prince is the same as it was. It looks the same as it did the day after the earthquake. They've hardly removed any rubble. The presidential palace is on the ground. Very little is happening because lack of funds, corruption, political unrest, there are all sorts of problems there. So they're not going to get over it soon, that's for sure. So we decided to go in there, and we believe the best way to help would be to help the churches whose buildings collapsed during the earthquake, and to help pastors who either lost their homes or destitute themselves. So I'm working with two pastors right now who are the poorest of the poor, lost their homes in the earthquake, and have been living in tents. One pastor and his 4 children lived in the streets for almost a year before he could even get into a tent. That's the level of poverty that is down there. Next slide, please. This is the family. This is Pastor Cave and his family. Now, you don't see many smiles there. You know, there's something about the Haitian culture. They're just kind of forlorn. Even, I'll show you another picture in a little bit after we built the house for them. They're still standing there just like they are there. You know, there's no excitement. When I built in Mexico, I mean, the family's jumping up and down, dancing, excited. We're going to have a big deal here, but not in Haiti. It's just not their temperament. It's not wrong. It's just different. And are they excited? Are they grateful? You bet they are. And this is a great pastor. I was in his tent church. The church meets in the tent as well, by the way. So he's a great man, loves the Lord, has a great ministry down there. They just, emotionally, it's just a little bit different. That's all. Next slide. This is the house he lives in. It's just a tent with kind of rubble. Next. Inside of it, just a basic bed, not much furniture in there, just rough wood with tarps put on it. Next. There's the other end of it. You can see not anything I would care to live in for any length of time. And by the way, they live in this thing when the hurricanes blow through there through. You know, they not only have a problem with earthquakes there, and a horrendous one in 2010, but these hurricanes blow over the top of the island, sometimes 1 or 2 per year. I don't think I'd want to be in that thing in a hurricane, I'll tell you that. Next slide. This is the beginning of the building I just finished. I've been back about a month now, heading back tomorrow morning to work on a church building down there. But this was a tough one because it was like building a small earthquake-resistant house on the side of the Rock of Gibraltar. I mean, it is rough, hard. Took a week just to begin to scratch something into the soil there. But at this point, we've got it dug, we've got the foundation in, and I'm not an earthquake-resistant construction guy. I mean, I live in Michigan. I felt 2 earthquakes in Michigan, and it was just a very tremble. We had one a month or 2 ago. Did you remember that? I felt it because I was sitting very still in my office. But down there, they're huge. So to build earthquake-resistant, it takes a lot of concrete, a lot of rebar. And that foundation is 2 feet wide and 2 feet deep, most of the places, someplace 3 feet deep, and it's got 5/8 of an inch rebar, and it's huge. And then you can see the rebar sticking up. That's going to go up through the walls. It's going to be grouted, and it's going to tie into the overhead. So this whole thing is like a grid of concrete and rebar. Next slide, please. Just another view from the opposite end. You're kind of looking beyond that little tree. You can see the mountain in the back. This is actually the opposite side of the valley. So I'm building on a hill very similar to the one you're looking at in the background there. Next. Getting our block up. We're 2 block up on the high end of the hill and 4 or 5 block on the downside. So you put the block up on top of that foundation, you backfill it, and you prepare to pour the concrete. Next one. Going up about halfway. Again, you can see here we're kind of straight. You know, if you look at these nice lines in the block, the Haitians don't know how to do that. They poured concrete or poured the foundation, and then we put the block on it, and I came back and I said, we can't do that. I had to tear it all out. And I'm not a mason, but I've had a trowel in my hand a couple of times in my life, so I showed them how to lay block and to put it up exactly straight, because if it's not straight, that rebar that you saw sticking out of the foundation, it's got to go up right in the core, all the way up, and then that core is filled with grout, and that happens every 2 or 3 feet. So it's extremely important that everything be laid out exactly correctly, and they struggle with that. I had a guy down there helping me with this one. You'll see him in a little bit, Glenn Fawcett. Glenn said, why are we bringing Americans down here? It costs so much money. These Haitians can do that. Until we got to the part where he was working with them, and he said, yeah, we need to bring more Americans down here. Again, they're just not accustomed to our level of standards, building standards, and they don't understand earthquake resistant at all. 2 problems with buildings down there. The first one is the design. Very poor designs that are almost inherently built to come tumbling down. The second problem is the building materials. That white stuff you saw in that foundation, you'll see again, they call that sand. That's not sand. It's ground up like powdery stone. And it's horrible for concrete. The concrete doesn't adhere very good because there's not enough rough edges to it. So they use very poor cement, very poor sand. Their cement blocks are very poor. And so inherently, again, you shake it and it's going to come down. There's no doubt about it. So my task was to go down there and either make the cement block or find a supplier. By the grace of God, I found a guy who is trained in America, runs a cement block plant that actually tests the block to 2,000 PSI, does a great job. I pay more money for it, but we want this thing to be standing in the next earthquake. Next slide, please. There we're going all the way up. Again, you can see the motor joints are actually consistently 3/8 of an inch, and not some of them, with them, it's usually 1 inch and then nothing, and then maybe 1 inch and nothing, but we're consistent here. Next slide. These are 2 American volunteers that I had with me on this last project. Dennis Hudson on the left and Glenn Fawcett on the right. They here are pouring what's called a bond beam. The bond beam goes all the way around the top. It's perimeter. Sometimes it's called a ring beam. You form it up. You put re-rod laying flat in there, and you pull it about 3 inches off the bottom, and then you pour concrete into that ring beam, and wherever you have rebar sticking up, you pour the concrete down where the rebar is, so that you've got, again, this nice tight grid of concrete and rebar. Next slide. This is it from the downside. Again, it kind of looks like the Great Wall of China, doesn't it? That big, tall wall, but it's the downside of the hill. If you look at it, the interior floor is about right there, because this is, again, the downside of the hill. So we've got there, the bond beam is poured, and we've got the finished, or the rough plaster on the outside. Next slide. Just another view, bond beam, and you can see on the left, that's this is the existing tent house, and the door now is going to be directly adjacent to that. We would like to think that they'll tear this down, but they won't. So we kind of made it easy access for them to get the one building to the next if they want to do that. Next slide. These are Haitian workers. I do use them quite a bit. They're pretty good with flat work. It's amazing. They do concrete flat work with a pointed trowel. They do everything with a pointed trowel. It wouldn't surprise if they ate their dinner with a pointed trowel. They don't use flat trowels the way we do it here, so everything's a flat trowel. So they're putting down the perimeter concrete for the slab inside one of the rooms, and then they're going to trowel it out. Next slide. This complicated work coming up this hill. You got to come up about a 3-foot incline, pushing wheelbarrows up this. That was tough. I must confess, my first 3 days in building this building, I was totally frustrated. And the last time I checked the book of Galatians, frustration was not a fruit of the Spirit. I have to confess it. But I was totally frustrated because they seemed to understand so little. And even when I took time to draw it out on paper and spend 30 minutes explaining it to them, if I walked away and came back, it was not going to be done right. So again, it just enforced to me, I have to have Americans down here doing some of this. In fact, if anyone's got a passport and you've got a week off and you want to go to Haiti tomorrow morning, I'll take you. Because my civil engineer has a very serious medical problem. He can't go. So I'm going to be down there again trying to get guys to do this job while I'm out doing some survey work. So it's going to be interesting. So it was a pretty aggressive site. Downside again, putting on the finished plaster and putting the rebar in the windows. You can also see now the rafters. This is going to be a flat roof house, so I've got rafters going across, and I was able to find, believe it or not, pressure-treated lumber from, I believe it was Washington down there. It cost me $50 for a 2x10 16, but it was well worth it because I want this thing to be standing and not rotted out or consumed by termites in 20 or 25 years. Next slide. This is Glenn Fawcett putting on the steel roofing. Took me a while to find good quality steel roofing, but we did find it, and that roofing should be there. Down there, if you get 15, 20 years out of steel roofing, it's good. I'm hoping to get 30 or 40 out of this. Next slide. Interior, again, you can see the pressure-treated wood. You can see the painted metal. We use painted because, again, it's a brighter, lighter environment on the inside of the building. Next slide. There's Clay Moan. He's my on-site guy. He's 65 years old, did a lot of construction in Haiti, and I'd really hoped to have him be my man. But it isn't going to work because there's too much culture, language barrier, and it's just difficult working with Haitians. So he's a great guy. I'm surely going to use him again, but I won't be able to use him to oversee the project like I was initially hoping. Next slide. Installing windows. I was able to get a window manufacturer to make me windows within 24 hours down there, custom jealousy windows. I was amazed. It took me a long time. It took me 2 weeks to find all my suppliers, but now I've got them. Life is good because the Lord is good to give me these suppliers, I'll tell you. Next slide. Interior doors, again, difficult to find metal-clad doors down there. They all want to use wood doors, but in these environments, wet, dry, they're just warping and twisting, and in a couple of years, they'd be a mess. So it took us a while to find metal doors, but we actually found metal doors down there with frames for $160 a door, which is a deal. Everything in Haiti, by the way, there are two prices. There's a Haitian price, and then there's the American price. So I don't buy. I send a Haitian in to get the prices and do the buying, and I only show up to make sure it's the right product because they'll charge me sometimes 10 times what they would charge a Haitian. Next slide. Another interior door. Next. Interior window. Next. This is finished plaster coming to completion here now. Again, I look at that and it's just the... It does look like the Great Wall of China on one side, but it is solid. It's earthquake resistant. We know that. We're excited about it. We initially thought these buildings would cost about $6,500. This one cost me about 10 grand. We think it'll be less than that on the next one because the next site won't be as aggressive. But if we get into a rock situation like this again, it's likely to be 10 grand again. But that's a pretty good deal. Getting a family out of a tent into a 2-room house that's earthquake resistant for under 10 grand is huge in Haiti. Next slide. That's finished product. Can't really see color on that thing. It was supposed to be a salmon color. They like color down there, and it wound up pink for some reason. I don't know why that happened, but they didn't mind at all. Pink's okay. We'll take pink. Next slide. This is a family, again, all done deal. I mean, dedication service, and they're just kind of standing there, you know? No emotion at all. Their daughter... Ondeka, she was crying. She realized, how much it meant for her. These people literally had to bathe and shower outside. I mean, I was embarrassed for them. I came down there and I come around the side of the building and there's a gal bathing on the outside. I didn't know. It's just everything is in the open. So now they're going to have some level of privacy that they didn't have before for this small family. And you think it's just a 2-room house, but it's huge. When it comes to Haitian standards. Next slide. Pastor Predestin on the outside. Pastor Predestin is the president of the Association of Churches down there, and there's 120 churches in that association. The GARBC connected with him, and we are in a coalition, by the way. This isn't just ABWE. Any one organization has a difficult time getting things done in Haiti. So we have combined with ABWE is combined with GARBC and also CWE. And the three of us all bring something to the table. So, and Pastor Predestin he's not GARBC, but he's worked very closely with the GARBC. And the GARBC do church seminars and pastoral seminars with Pastor Predestin on a regular basis. Next slide. That's it. Done deal. Next house, I think we're going home. Yeah. Next slide. This is the next man that we're going to work with. This is Pastor Savin, and he is even poorer than the previous pastor. He was living in a rented building. He couldn't even afford to put up a tent on a piece of property. He's living with other family members in some structure, I don't know. But he's going to be the man that we're going to build the next house for. That'll be in just a couple of months, I believe, and we've got a team already going down to put that one up. Next slide. And this is the property. Doesn't that look sweet compared to that Rock of Gibraltar we were building on before? You can actually get a shovel in the ground there. So we're pretty confident this should be a little bit easier, and now that we've done one, when you do one, it's a learning curve, so we think the curve won't be as steep on this one, and we'll be able to go on from there. Next slide. These next slides that I'm going to show you are actually going to be from Africa. They just finished the 2 churches that I put foundations on in Africa. We did two churches there in conjunction with CWE. And I'm showing this because this is exactly the foundation that we're going to be putting up in Haiti. And then CWE, who does the upper structure, will come behind us and put the rest of the building on. So if we can go next slide. This is starting out the Chave Church in Togo, West Africa. It's really picturesque, isn't it? And to worship with these people in grass huts is really cool until it rains. When it rains, that grass doesn't shed water like you would hope. And you got to change it on a regular basis because it rots. Critters live up there. It's huge with regard to fire, of course. So we want to get them into a good, solid building. Next slide. This is the church on the interior. About 60 people, a lot of them kids. Next. Pastor teaching with the translator. They weren't translating into English for me. They teach in the tribal language, and then the translator translates it into French because they use both languages, and it's also a good way of learning French. Many of the young people, especially, they only know their tribal language. It's important for them to learn French. You can hear a sermon in both languages, and you're going to eventually pick some of it up. Next. Sunday school outside. Next. This is the church family. This is a Where's Waldo slide. See Waldo? He's way over there. There's Waldo. Just had a great time worshiping with these people. And in working with them, it's just like here at Trinity if you were to do something together, a work project together. I mean, they're having fun. They're excited. They're working hard. It was just fun to be with them. Just a great group of people. 2 different congregations I worked with a couple months ago to put up foundations. Here's the roofing system coming off. We got to tear this one down. They tore this thing down in about 2 or 3 hours Sunday after church. There's the interior of it coming down. It really is like a quaint little facility, but it has its needs. These are the men carrying the logs off. In the next slide here, we'll see the ladies caught in on this act. They said, if the men can do that, we can do it. And these 3 ladies walked up to this big old log and picked it up. And the lady on the right here, she's cheering them on. Yeah, you can do it. And they did. They threw it on the wood pile over there and had great fun at the men's expense. When all was left, we burned the remainder down. We hung onto this straw because we wanted to cover the cement up. After we poured the cement slab, in that blistering hot sun, it gets to be 100 degrees there, and it's dry, and that concrete will dry way too fast out there. So we save that straw over there to throw on top of the cement slab after we pour it. This is the remaining portion of the building going up in smoke. Next. I'm just laying out the building here. Kind of eerie. You're tromping around in these things, and there's snakes and critters over there, and every time I tell people, there's no critters over here, things start jumping out of the trees and everything. I took a group to Mexico one time. Half of the team was ladies. And they said, any animals, any critters? And I said, no, there's none here. And I'd been there 4 times and I didn't see any. But then we arrived. And I don't know what it was. They were everywhere. Jumping spiders, lizards, snakes, scorpions. I mean, you name it. It was everywhere. Those ladies, I admired them. They had to trust the Lord in ways they never did before. In fact, I walked by the ladies' dorm. This is commercial, I guess here. I walked by the dorm one time. The ladies' dorm, we had men and ladies separate living areas. And I walked by, and the ladies are obviously seeing a commotion in there. And I went in, or I knocked on the door, and I said, hey, can I help you with anything? Yeah, come on in. We've got a scorpion coming up the wall, and he's right next to my bed. Okay, so I went and pulled the bunk beds back, and I said, someone have a flip-flop? And they gave me a flip-flop, and I gave him a whack, and he fell to the floor, and I said, he's on the run. And they thought I said, it's time to run. It was a stampede. It really was. I mean, it was a stampede out the door. And I had an 80-year-old lady, and I was reluctant to take her, but she was a trooper. And they almost ran her down on the way out the door. But in Haiti, truly, I've been going there now for a year, almost no critters. Cockroaches and a few rodents here and there, but nothing like Africa, nothing at all. Okay, back to the presentation. These are the ladies and the kids digging gravel out of the riverbed. We were able to get a significant amount of gravel right locally, right on the site, just, it's probably 50 yards. So they were digging it up in these metal bowls, carrying it up to a pile and accumulating it so we could make cement block and concrete out of it. Next. Everyone gets in on the act here. Here you've got just the young girls carrying it up. It was mostly the young guys digging it out of the riverbed and ladies carrying it, but the younger girls got involved in the process as well. Next. Everywhere, whether it be Haiti or Africa, you never know how your materials are going to arrive. In this case, they had this little station wagon. You can barely see it, but this thing is loaded right to the roof line with cement. These bags, these are 100-pound bags of cement. I don't know how they got that car loaded like that. I mean, I've owned a couple small cars, and I've never done that to it, I'll tell you. But they just load it up, do what they got to do. Next. These are the ladies hauling water. They would haul it out of that same riverbed, dump it into these trash cans or 50-gallon drums. But even the kids, this little girl, she's got this little bucket of water, and see this mom, she's got her little baby on the back. This little girl's got her doll on the back too, you know? So they trade them real young down there, that's for sure. Next. By the grace of God, typically in these countries, they mix concrete on the ground. They put a slurry of cement, let it set up so it's a hard base, then they just dump everything in the pile, and they mix water with it, and they do it on the ground, then they shovel it into the wheelbarrow, and then they wheel it up. I mean, it is horribly time-consuming. But this last trip, we bought a brand-new cement mixer down, and it was $3,000, I believe, but it was well worth it. These are the younger volunteers. They're not very productive. These kids were on site just about every day, and they were just a delight to watch. You know, they're climbing all over stuff, but it's not like in the States here. I mean, you would never let kids in a construction site in the States, but over there, that's no big. It's a family affair, you know, so everybody gets involved. Here's another little guy. That's cement dust on his face, you know. By the way, those cement blocks laying on the ground in front of him, those are handmade. We have a form. You mix the concrete on the ground. You shovel it into these forms. You whack it 5 or 6 times with a shovel. Clean the top off. You turn it over. It's just like making sandcastles, you know? Same thing. And if you get the right cement mix, they're extremely strong and good product. Next. These are the kids again. I like this. This is the pastor's son. He's got this infectious, perpetual smile on his face all the time. A great kid. Next one. This kid trying to see how much sand he could put in that kid's ear is what he was doing. Nobody seemed to mind. Next one. This is the foundation. Again, this was a little bit of an aggressive site only because it was on a hill. Same thing in Haiti that I've got to do, only I have to do this again in this concrete type soil. But here you can see it stepped. I mean, we've got 1, 2, 3 steps here. And this, actually, I had to dig this whole corner down about 2 feet, or else I'd have had 3 more steps. So this was a unique site, a little bit of a challenge, but not a big deal because the ground, you could actually dig in it with a shovel. You didn't need a pick. And the Haitians, or here, the Africans did a great job. I mean, they make a foundation perfectly square, and you know they're really up to speed. It was really easy to work with the Africans compared to the Haitians. Next. This is pouring the slab. Now you can see that stepping took place on this side. So we've got all the block up. You've got 3 or 4 block on this end and 1 block on this end. Then you backfill it all with sand and compact it either by hand, just chimping it down, or a flat plate compactor. Then you put all this rebar, it's in a grid, about 1 foot squares, and just like Haiti, rebar coming up on all the sides. And then you just start pouring your concrete. The way they do it in Africa, because you're mixing with a mixer, they'll do a row here, then they'll do a row here, and they'll fill in between. And then here they'll do this, and then they'll start another row, and they just work their way down. And then when we're all done, we'll take that straw and put it back on top, like I mentioned earlier. Next. This is pretty much the finished slab. And again, this is the exact same thing we're doing in Haiti. Nothing is really different except for the workers and the ground. They've trolling this and doing a good job. This is Haiti now. This is where I'm going tomorrow morning. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll be in Haiti. And if you look at this terrain This doesn't look like a big deal. It just kind of looks like they have this maybe, if you saw this in Michigan, you'd think it was just hard clay and then the grass was kind of growing around it. No, that's like concrete. You got to break that out with a sledgehammer. In fact, I had a couple guys experience with a jackhammer. We rented a jackhammer. We're going to have to jackhammer this whole foundation. And again, the building is going to be up in here. There's a lot of this stuff, but I just got word that there are also 6 boulders, 2 of which are 28 feet in diameter. And I got to jackhammer through those. So this is just Haiti. Just the terrain and some of the hurdles that you have to overcome to put a building up down there. This is that jackhammer, and this is the type of material. This is the concrete type stuff. And you can see it even comes out like concrete. And this is the easy part. And then we've got back here is we're going to start one of those boulders, and we're going to have to chisel our way through that. In Haiti, an earthquake-resistant foundation is 16 inches thick, 24 inches wide, and again, multiple 4-inch, 5/8 rebar going around the whole perimeter. And then there are columns that come up. Every 10 feet, there's a 16 by 16 column made out of standard 8 by 16 block. And there are 4 rebar, 1 in each of those 4 core, 5/8 diameter, going all the way up to the roof. And then there's a grid. Every other course of block, there's rebar going all the way around the building. So again, this is much more robust even than the house that I'm building because the spans are larger and we want to give more rigidity to the walls. Next. I find it interesting in the Word, and I just read this week, that in all 3 of these books, the Lord says the exact same thing. If you come after me, you must deny yourself and take up your cross daily. And we do that here, but I want to encourage you to continue to do it both here and abroad. Do what you have to do. I'm not a very wealthy person, but I know there's going to come a day when I'm going to stand before a holy living God, and I'm going to have to give an account. And I believe it's not how much you have necessarily in life, but it's how much you give. Some churches speak about giving a certain percentage and so forth. A certain percentage is easier for a person who has a whole lot of money than one who has very little. Now, you might think you don't have a whole lot of money, but I want to tell you, wherever I've been in the world, you are exceedingly wealthy. And you're going to stand before God with a Haitian, with an African, with third world people all around you. And guess who's going to be recognized as having the most? It's going to be you. I would encourage you. And not just financially, even with your life. I praise God. Now, I've worked with churches, startup churches, evangelistic efforts, and a lot of different things in my Christian life. I came to know the Lord out of the Navy. The Lord every salvation is miraculous, but mine is uniquely miraculous. And boy, what a blessing it's been to know Him and walk with Him through these years. And sometimes I've had full-time jobs, sometimes part-time jobs, but it's always just to do the work of the ministry. Several years ago, I was working for Medline Corporation. I was a test lab manager, and we had 3 test lab managers. And I looked around one day and I said, I'm the oldest, I'm probably the highest paid, and I'm probably the one they would just as soon get rid of because I've already taken unpaid leave of absence to do missions. And sure enough, when the company got into trouble, I was the first guy out the door. And then just a couple months after that, they went bankrupt anyway. But I say all that because when I walked out the door of Medline, I just bowed my head in my car and I said, Lord, thank you. That chapter's closed. And I'm going to go back into full-time ministry a little bit earlier than we had planned, simply because I want to invest more of my life. And missions, I find, is a great place for me to be. I've got building experience and mechanical experience, and Bill is a great guy to work with and for. And what I'm doing in Haiti, I've been, ABWE doesn't have anybody in Haiti. Folks gave us finances to help in Haiti, and we said, oh my goodness, we need to do something in Haiti. We not just give money, not just send money, but what can we do in Haiti with the finances we already have? And Bill said, hey, Dave, I've got this Haiti ministry. Are you interested? And I said, yeah, I'll take that one. And it'll go on for at least 2 years. We're going to do 4 buildings, 4 houses, and 2 churches this year. Next year, I've already got my first church building picked out. It's way out in the boondocks. The building is on the ground, just leveled in the earthquake. And this is out of Port-au-Prince. Most people think just Port-au-Prince. This building is, an hour and a half drive out of Port-au-Prince, and nobody wants to go out there. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to rough it. There's no running water. There's no toilets. It'll be a masonry building, but we'll be camping out, so to speak. And I don't know how long it's going to take me to do that building, but that's one for 2013. And I'm also going to do a couple more houses down there. So there's a lot to do. I just consider it a real privilege to be able to help these people. And again, we're helping churches and pastors because we believe that is going to have the greatest impact on the kingdom of God. We can advance the kingdom by getting these churches out of these tents, and I mean really rough tents, and getting pastors out of tents, get them into a building that can sustain not only an earthquake, but the hurricanes and everything else that blows over the top of the island. So I'd encourage you to consider getting involved in the ministry in Haiti. Again, this is that Haitian family. There's many of them down there. My first survey trip, I met with 16 pastors, all of them living in tents, most of them having church families worshiping in tents. I picked 2 of the neediest churches for buildings and 4 of the neediest pastors for houses. And when I go back next week, I'm going to be working on that next church and also visiting more pastors to find the neediest, because my goal is to meet the needs of the neediest people there, neediest believers and neediest churches that are in Haiti. And I'm excited to be able to do it. It's a great privilege to be involved. Next slide. Again, this is a church. Now, this is the one in Africa, but the church families in Haiti, they're just like this. They are Africans without African culture. It's really unique. Africa, all the people are tribal. And that has unique problems because you have, even within the church, you have tribal loyalties. But in Haiti, because they're all slaves, I don't know if you know the history of Haiti, they were all slaves, and the island was governed by the French. The slaves rebelled, and they drove the French out. And so when you're in the common, slave soup, so to speak, the tribal identity goes away, and those factions don't exist any longer. But it's Africa with a Jamaican twist to it. In many respects. And the believers there are again, different from Africa in many respects, but in many other respects, they're the same. These are good, solid churches, by the way. They are trained, the group that's training them right now is a group of profs from Dallas Theological Seminary going down 2 or 3 times a year to do the Haiti Bible Institute. They're better trained than most Haitian pastors, and they're really rock solid when it comes to their theology. They're not out there preaching a prosperity gospel or something other than a gospel of grace. They're just good, solid men. Next slide. I think that's it. So again, if you would like to be involved at whatever level, if you'd like to be involved in building a house, building a church, you could finance some of that if you'd wanted to. If you just wanted to take a team down and utilize some funds that we may have already available for the materials, you can do that. I also think it'd be great if more churches in the U.S. would partner with a Haitian church. And it's not only churches in pastoral homes. I'm looking at one man who has an orphanage. And there's 8 orphans is all he's got, and they're all living in his house. And it's a disaster of a house. I mean, I think I could push that wall down with my bare hands. So we've thought about that. Wouldn't it be great to give them a building, or to maybe get a church to partner with this man so they can care for this small orphanage? I mean, they're a larger orphanage. Pastor Predeston, by the way, who you saw on the screen, he has 3 different orphanages. He's got one for girls, boys, and then little kids, little guys. And we're going to have a church that's going to go down. Half of the group is going to build a house for a pastor. The ladies are going to go down, and they're going to be working in that orphanage. But like I said, on a small orphanage, we could get a church involved to maybe build a building, care for the orphans, do English as a second language, do Bible studies. It's French, but the young people know enough English, and you can help them along with the English. You can be a real blessing in many respects. So that's what we are doing in Haiti. And we're excited. We believe we're on the right track. Our ministry is a small ministry, though. I mean, the needs in Haiti are huge. They are never going to get over it. The Lord said the poor will always be with you. Haiti, as we know it today, will always be with us. But that doesn't mean we ignore it. It doesn't mean we walk away from it saying, oh, we can't do anything. You can. You can help some. And again, like the Good Samaritan himself, I mean, he didn't consider all of the issues. He risked his own life, went down, helped that individual at his own cost. And I think that that's what we should be doing as well, giving of ourselves so that we can help people in such desperate needs. People are physically dying because they don't have reasonable housing and a reasonable way of life in Haiti. And we can have a part in preserving their physical life and then introducing people to the Lord Jesus Christ so that they can have spiritual life. Help the church, help the pastors. They know how to help the people better than you and I do. So let's help those who are already in a position to help the rest of the country. That's our goal, and we believe we're off to a good start, and we're excited to what the Lord has for us.
Come on, back up. And also, would you just give him a hand? This man is doing he's making sacrifices to make this happen. In the U.S., we talk about a self-made person, someone who's working their way up, who's got the kind of job that's going to save up some money and make something happen. It isn't the case for the people you're helping there. If these people don't have this kind of help, they're going to go on probably indefinitely living in a tent home. I don't know about you. How many of you like to tent out? Well, there's a couple crazies. As a child, we would go tenting. I remember, even as a kid, you'd go out on a vacation, it would begin to rain. In those tents, the water would start coming in. Then your clothes are wet, and your sleeping bag is wet, and your shorts are wet, and then you can't go anywhere. Imagine these people are not only in these tents sleeping, practically in the open air, but when the rains come, they're stuck in that. And so I don't know about you, but I've been in the place in a tent like that where I've wanted to cry before. That's the kind of discomfort these people are living with. And I'm not saying I know exactly what we should do, but when we have a need presented to us and there's something that can be done, I think it behooves us to try to do something. Now, right now, we're not going to take up any offering or anything for this. I want this to sink in. Gene and Dave are going out to lunch after this. Gene Smith, our chairman of our board, and Gene has been on missions trips to do construction. And so we want to hear in more detail what we might be able to do. And then I want you to think if this is the kind of thing you might be willing to go on. And then we're going to have to raise support to do something like this. That's why he's saying, if we could hire the Haitians to do it, what would you do? He'd hire them. But this is true. And Louise, you laughed when he made those kind of statements, right, Louise? You know about this. And one thing you need to understand, that's not to criticize the Haitians or the Indians or the Africans. Just we as Americans are, even if you've never done construction, the whole idea that the where we live and how we live makes us so much more mechanically savvy than others. They just don't understand how things go together. Now, you don't need everybody to go to be an expert. You need people with just a good back and a good disposition, right? Disposition first, good back second. And then some skilled people. Because I have some skills, but construction is not my skill. But I can still help someone who is skilled. And so I'm just telling you, I'm open to be one of those people to go. And we'll just see what the Lord does with this. So let's worship team, would you sing? And then